Hello everyone, welcome to my channel, or welcome back to my channel. My name's Caitlin and I run Poetry and Prose Adventures. In this video, I wanted to read 1-star reviews of books that I've rated 5 stars this year. And I was just going to do for the month of August, but the only book that I rated 5 stars was The Sun Also Rises and Other Stories by Hemingway. But I'm going to do it for probably the months of June through August, because I've read definitely a lot more since June. So I find people's Goodreads 1-star reviews to be pretty fun to read, and they kind of crack me up sometimes if people have comments. There were some funny ones that I had read about Dracula that were 1 star, and it was like people completely missed the plot of the book, and I was like, how did we get here? Alright, someone said, I was rather disappointed by this classic. It started out with promise, especially the Jonathan Harker bits. Then all the male characters descended into blubbering worshippers of the 2 female characters. And by the end of the novel, I was wishing Dracula could snack on all of them and be done with it. I kept having to put it aside and read chapters in between other books, but I managed to finish it at last. I find that interesting because I think you missed the whole plot of the book there. There's a whole lot that you missed in there. Someone said, when does he open the hotel? That's a 1-star review. This person doesn't seem too happy. After reading Dracula, I realized that just because something is considered a classic doesn't mean it can't be shit. And I do agree with that. I'm not saying that I don't agree with everything that people are saying. But what I've noticed on Goodreads is 1-star reviews, almost every single time people are missing the plot and the whole point. Anyways, continuing on, for the most part, I didn't really know what was going on. The characters talk like Yoda from Star Wars sometimes. And that's fair, because I had to reread Van Helsing's part several times. It's not an easy book to read. And furthermore, it's not even an easy book to understand most of the time. But if you value your sanity, do not read this book. Okay. Then someone else said, this novel was an absolute ordeal to get through. I agree. The beginning is compelling, what with the vivid descriptions of Dracula's castle and how Jonathan Harker reaches it, but what ensues will put you to sleep. Lucy's deteriorating health is described in excruciating detail, and the ominous Count Dracula is intimidated and defeated amazingly easily for someone with such devastating supernatural powers. Also, he hardly appears in the novel. It's Gothic literature. You gotta read between the lines. The whole storyline basically just consists of convoluted journal entries. I thought they made sense. The fact that certain characters such as Mina and Renfield are able to read the Count's mind just constitutes a deep-seated flaw in Stoker's narrative style. You're missing it. You're missing points. The reason Mina can read Dracula's mind is because he attached himself to her. Those are his supernatural abilities. Renfield he speaks through Renfield and to Renfield also, because Renfield had visited Dracula first. That's why he's in the asylum, because everybody thought he was crazy. Do you not get it? Anyways, moving on. This is one of my favorite books. As hard as it was to read, I love Dracula. I also love Gothic literature, and I like stuff that's hard to read, because it makes me feel smart when I understand it, okay? The fact that certain characters... Oh, I already read that, sorry. In spite of the fact that this is billed as a horror novel, it is completely devoid of thrills and tension. It frustrates me that novels of this quality are remembered and spawn infinite movie adaptations and spin-offs, while the works of genuinely talented and original authors sink into oblivion. It actually ends. That would be the best thing about this book. It has an end, although there are times it doesn't feel like it. I listened to this book rather than reading it, that was your first mistake, and it still dragged on and on. In short, it was long, it was boring, it was repetitive, it dragged, it was even a bit offensive. We're reading with 21st century glasses, everybody. I'm only left with one question. How did this book survive for so long and become a classic? This is hurting me. Some people say that they're bored. It's probably time to move on to a different book. It makes me sad. It's a really great book. Alright. This will be the last one that I read. If it were possible to give this book 0 stars, I would. Don't read this book. It's awful. The characters are all absolutely insufferable, and the female characters especially are written in such a way that makes it clear that Stoker did not hold very progressive attitudes about women. This was written in the 1800s. I don't think anybody had progressive views about women. And honestly, even if you aren't aggravated as I was about literally all of the characters, the book isn't actually that interesting. It's written through several characters' diaries, and it just makes the entire book drag and seem like a lot of Victorian whining and hand-wringing. So don't read this if you're looking for any cool vampire stuff. If you're looking for cool vampire stuff, read Interview with a Vampire, The Vampire Lestat, Queen of the Damned, Twilight. Twilight's not cool in my opinion, but if you want something cool, Dracula's not a cool book. It is a very classic gothic horror novel about the possibilities of somebody living in eternity on planet Earth. Are you not getting it? Anyways, it's crazy to think that people could be bored by Dracula. Just watch the 90s movie adaptation of it. They blend the novel very well with newer ideas. And you probably will understand the book better. You shouldn't need the movie to understand the book better, but in the 21st century, I think people do need the movie to understand the book better sometimes. But anyways, I digress, okay? Moving on to Jaws. I'm going to read my review on Goodreads first, okay? This book definitely deserves 5 out of 5 stars. Personally, I liked it way better than the movie, in which Spielberg hadn't left so many important plot points out of it. I mean, come on, there's a dinner party in which both Ellen and Martin embarrass themselves greatly, more shark attack scenes, people are driving into town just to see the Great White, there's a devious love affair, and the final part of the book is so good. A quick, easy read for summer that'll have you wishing you never stepped 10 feet near a beach. Love Jaws. And honestly, I stand by that. I stand on business when I mean that Spielberg probably should have included the dinner party, the love affair. It's great. It's juicy. There's a lot of drama in the book, okay? I loved it. Let's get into the 1-star reviews, okay? Someone said, who doesn't know the famous Spielberg movie with a shark as the big bad guy who wreaks terror on an entire town with 3 men going on a mission to kill the shark before he kills even more people? Oh, this is very long. I don't want to read that. It's disappointing. Moving on. Ugh! Update. Vilest book of 2021 and the vilest book I've ever read. Every copy belongs in an incinerator. This book was so appallingly bad, disastrous, and misogynistic that it's making me rethink all my previous 1-star rated books and whether they truly deserved it when a book is vile and tedious as this one exists. Oh, that's so funny. Everybody's saying, okay, not everybody, but the last 2 1-star reviews are saying that the main plot is Brody's wife's infidelity. It's not. It's just in the middle of the book. Let's be real. Like, honestly, I think I almost said fun. It was fun to read, but I thought it was interesting that, like, yeah, the main plot point is this shark that's, like, evil. And if you read the foreword, you understand that Benchley was just playing with an idea, and he was a marine biologist. He loved sharks, studied them, loved them. Him and his wife had, like, research and all this crazy stuff. I don't really fully remember, but they, like, funded marine life and funded marine biology research, and they were big advocates of the ocean and animals that live in the ocean. And the main plot is the shark, okay? There's, like, maybe 50 pages, if not slightly more, about Brody's wife's infidelity. But I think it's also important because he's showing you the character development, and he's showing you why she's even in Amity in the first place. Her whole family was very much, like, elitist, like, Hampton people, you know? And she marries Brody, who's a police officer. And she feels as if if anything, this is not misogynistic whatsoever. He writes it from her point of view. And if anything, she feels as if she wasted her time getting married because her husband's chasing a shark, which he needed to do because he's the chief of police of Amity, but she feels like she left so many parts of her life behind. And that's on her to regret that, you know what I mean? But, like, people are focusing a little too hard on that. I thought it was interesting. And then there's that whole dinner scene where they get, like, he, like, is so mad at her And it's like, and then they're talking about racism, and again, this book was written in 1974. Let's think about the context. Okay. I think I know where every single one of these comments is going. I thought the book was well written. Sorry, hate to break it to you. Don't hate to break it to you. You know what? Whatever. I think people, my mom and I were just having this conversation about Hemingway. People are reading books written before 2004 with 21st century goggles. Not even reading glasses, goggles. Y'all be reading these with thick lens goggles with the nose piece, you know? Just very stuck in this box of everything has to be this way because it's 2025. Forgetting that things were different 10 years ago. Now put 60 years of that into perspective. 50 years. 100 years into perspective. Things were very different with the publication of each and every single one of these books that I've rated 5 stars, because it's like saying that Cujo is offensive. It's about a dog that gets rabies. The only thing offensive is a farting mailman. Okay, let's be real. I thought Carrie was offensive, if I'm being completely honest. I hated the way he wrote it, and I DNF'd it. I thought it was gross. And I love Stephen King, but Carrie was gross. But at the same time, how are you going to read books that were written before you were born and say that it's offensive, or that it's not progressive enough, or that it's misogynistic, anti-feminist, it's racist, when you have to understand that at the time, society was so different. And I'll die on that hill, and I'm climbing down that hill real quick, because now, another one of my 5-star reads this year was Joyland by Stephen King. 1-star reviews. And I really hope they're better than what I just read. This poor old man. I'm abandoning this effort by Stephen King. Published in 2013 by Hardcase Crime, the pulp-styled crime label owned by Titan Books. I picked it up at the library wanting a King book to read and fell in love with the cover art. The cover art is, if you want to talk about misogyny, the cover art is of a very scantily clad, red-haired woman who so happens to be one of the main characters of the book, in front of the main setting of the book, the amusement park. He says, I should have known that redheads are nothing but trouble. The story is set in the 1970s in the aforementioned North Carolina amusement park, and is 150 pages of schmaltz and self-indulgence leading up to a whodunit that I never made it to. King might have wanted to hang out in a fun park, but gave me no compelling reason to with this story. Wow, what the heck? Oh, and then he talks about the guy that illustrated the cover. This is the saddest review I've ever read in my entire life. Like, do people read books for the plot anymore? Do people read to understand character development? Do people read to figure out, like, you know, the introduction, rising action, climax, falling action, and conclusion? Do we not read for that anymore? Someone else said, it infuriates me that this sloppily written and even more sloppily edited garbage gets published because it's Stephen King, when there are so many amazing unknown authors out there who could write circles around this. Ugh. If any of us had submitted this to an agent or publisher, it would have been promptly returned as it should have. No character development, no pacing, no plot, cliche-ridden, flat sentences, corny sex scenes. There's one, and it is corny as hell. No ability for the reader to figure out the mystery for his or herself. I was surprised at the end of the book. Thanks, publishing industry, for foisting this dreck on us and not giving an unknown a chance because this garbage sells. And girl, you picked it up off the shelf. You don't get to blame anybody. Zero accountability. You chose to read it. I don't know if this was a good idea, because honestly, I thought this was going to be fun. And now I'm just infuriated. I'm like, these are some of my favorite books. But I'm not taking it personally, okay? Let me just say that. I'm not taking it personally. It just disappoints me that people don't read for, like, any of the important stuff anymore. It makes me sad. Like, that's why I enjoy reading. I like the character development. I like the plots. I like the plot twists at the end. Even if there's plot holes and the twist is like, okay, that was predictable. Like, what do you really expect? You know what I mean? Don't even get me started on people that read smut, okay? Look, if you want to read a book, enjoy it. That's your thing. Hold on, wait a second. I wouldn't waste your time. King is more interested in letting the world know his ignorant opinion on politics. If that's your thing, knock yourself out. There wasn't really anything about politics. Just saying. Did not finish. This one just never got going for me. Endless details of some schmo's day working at an amusement park. A brief tease about something creepy and mysterious that would happen. Then just more detail about the schmo's days dancing in a dog costume for kids. Glad I checked this out from the library rather than buying it. And I'm thinking that people just bought this for the cover. This is the cover of the book. Let's be honest with ourselves, okay? Not returning this book to the library would be an act of public service. I really liked this book. I think people are missing the point. It was fun, okay? It was so fun. I'm really interested, I'll stop it after this one. I'm really interested because, I rated Helter Skelter 5 stars. It's a true crime story of the Manson murders, if you don't know what that is already. I recommend it. I thought it was very well written. It was long. It took me a long time to finish it. And there were parts that I was like, nope, don't want to read this today. Let me get a different book off my shelf. But it was very well written. If you don't know anything about the Manson murders, this will give you detailed descriptions of everything that happened. So parts of it were a hard read. Parts of it were really easy to read. Sometimes I flew through it. Sometimes I had to quit. But I finished it. And I rated it 5 stars. And I really enjoyed it. Regardless of my personal feelings on what had happened, I thought it was great. So let's see what the 1-star reviews are. Here we go. Charles Manson is one of the most tedious and unimportant figures in history. His racism, his misogyny, his hatred of everyone more successful than him, his opportunism, his lust for violence, none of these were original. All he did was read between the lines of mainstream American society and reflected it back in a more direct, unrepressed form. One of the great problems with this book, therefore, is that it refuses to see the extent to which Manson was, and repeating the evils of the system back to itself, a kind of perverse critique. Yes, he was an evil murderer who only cared about himself, but what kind of society would produce such a monster? The author never turns the lens around to look at himself or the world he inhabits to see the source of Manson's evil. There is a dogged conservatism to Bugliosi's narrative that refuses to see this truth. So if you don't know, Bugliosi was the prosecutor on the Manson case, which is why the book's so long. Yada, yada, yada. Bugliosi has a massive ego. He constantly makes himself the hero of the story, showing up the incompetence of the police and wrestling with perceived legal injustices and tricks that might have allowed Manson to go free. There is some sort of a biased perspective to it, but it's definitely more... He tells the story from beginning to end, including the trials and what happens at the end. This book is bad. Well, not just slightly bad, but terribly bad. How anyone can believe this tripe is truly beyond all realms of imagination. So much nonsense, it's almost embarrassing. Unfortunately, the book itself falls somewhat short of a literary masterpiece and seems to have won most of its acclaim as a result of people's terror shortly following the case itself, and their willingness to ingest whatever was written. Dwelling on the somewhat unbelievable and conspiracy-driven helter-skelter theory, the book posits an undeniably fantastic scenario in which a satanic hippie with unlimited supplies of drugs managed to convince his various young apostles to proceed with plans to begin a race war through killing. The gaping logical holes in the case forced logical individuals to place Helter Skelter in the fantasy section at their library. As pointed out by the somewhat more enjoyable and well-written work The Manson File, Myth and Reality of an Outlaw Shaman by Nicholas Schreck, Manson was aware Melcher was no longer at the murdered residence at the time, but had moved some blah, blah, blah. The idea of controlling people using LSD is ludicrous. When one studies the actual effects of the substance, a fact the government itself understood after failed MK-Ultra experiments, attempting to use LSD as a mind control drug and truth serum. Interesting. This just goes on and on and on and on. This man was essentially defending Manson? Wow. Oh, man. Someone responded saying, "You're obviously insane and have way too much time on your hands, which you choose to spend defending a proven serial killer." Yeah, and I agree with that. And then someone said, "Oh, of course, he's a political hero to the Palestinians. He hates Jews and makes no secret of the fact, but go ahead and support a racist." Clearly written for prosperity and to capitalize on a horrible tragedy. Yeah, defending Manson is honestly absolute insanity. Vincent Bugliosi is a monster, liar, and narcissist. I don't know. Anyways, I think I'm going to cut it here. Actually, one more. This was my first 5-star read of the year, Rebecca by Daphne du Maurier. One of the greatest books of fiction I've ever read in my entire life. Works of fiction. Phenomenal. I want to know what the haters of Daphne du Maurier are saying. Oh, and right off the bat, this is lovely language. I hated this boring-ass, pompous-ass, dumb-ass book. Why it sucked? Boring. Point number 1. Point number 2, the main character. Never in my life have I read about such a dull, naive, idiotic, clueless, worthless, Forrest Gump lookalike, boring, stupid person. She reminded me a lot of my younger self, actually. Why would you talk about yourself that way? That's so deprecating. I wouldn't want to know that person, let alone read about her. I would be embarrassed for her if I didn't hate her so much. Wow, man. Rip off Jane Eyre, why don't ya? Repetitive and insecure. One of my pet peeves in a main character is when they're insecure. Homegirl's like 13 or whatever. She's young in the book. I feel lied to. I feel betrayed by the high ratings. I feel rage and just a hint gassy. Girl, nobody needed to know that. I feel like throwing this book in a dumpster fire. This is so depressing. Okay, next one. 1 star. Wow, this really sucked. One of the most boring books I've ever read. I think people have lost their ability to read regular literature. Like, okay, the Dracula reviews, people couldn't understand it. Trust, it's a hard book to understand. Daphne du Maurier has some very simple writing, and the book made sense all the way through. People saying it was boring probably really liked the Twisted Love series. The whole book is just descriptions of flowers in a house. There's symbolism. People don't understand symbolism. Alright, well, maybe this will be more interesting next month because I kind of want to keep doing this. It's honestly, I don't know. I read a lot of, like, thought-provoking literature and stuff that requires understanding of symbolism and character development and why that's so significant to the plot of the book. Anyways, there's all different types of readers in the world. And I think what we've learned in this video is, well, right now my brain is drawing a blank. So, don't know what to tell you. But yeah, if you've read any of these books, what were your thoughts? If you don't like my opinions on current situation of anything literary, that's okay. Because I don't like a lot of people's opinions on the same thing. But anyways, my opinions are my opinions. I'm not speaking truth. I'm not speaking hard facts. I'm just stating what I think and giving you somewhat of an idea of what I read and why I read it and how I read. I find it very important to understand, one, historical context, okay? Not everybody is Anna Huang. Not everybody is whoever the lady is that wrote 50 Shades of Grey. Not everybody is progressionist, especially in the 20th century and 19th century and 18th century. Not every, and so on and so forth, going backwards in time. Not everybody thinks the same as you do, and that's okay, and not everybody's going to think the same way that I do. And I think it's important to recognize that when you're reading literature. And finally, I think it's important to understand the characters and not just figure them out a little bit, but like to truly understand why they're a part of the story. Like in Jaws, his wife had a whole story. There was nothing misogynistic about it. Because had it been misogynistic, he would have written from Martin Brody's perspective or Hooper's perspective, or let's be completely real about it, he would have written it from Captain Quint's perspective, okay? But he didn't. He wrote that part of the story from Ellen Brody's perspective. So that's important to understand. Same thing with Dracula. It's written from multiple POVs, from diary entries, and I actually really enjoyed that. And Dracula is supposed to be this supernatural force. He's not Gary Oldman. And while that movie was a great adaptation of the book, it's not entirely the same, and it's important to recognize that. Anyways, I digress. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And you could dislike it if you want to. That's fine. I don't really care. But hope you enjoyed. Maybe you didn't enjoy it. Again, I don't really care. I'm here to share my opinions on the WWW World Wide Web. And yeah. Have a good day. See you guys in the next video. Thanks for watching.